Hello everybody and welcome to the third round of the Formula SimRacing World Championship here in 2025. We've come to the Albert Park Street Circuit for round 3 as we get ever closer to the halfway stage in this season, which currently is being dominated by Mark Schluter. He's the first driver in 4 years to win the first 2 races back-to-back. To become the first driver in 4 years to win the first 3 races back-to-back. Since Michi Hoyer did that back in 2021, nobody has been able to win 3 on the bounce at the start of a season. In fact, 3 on the bounce at any point in the season in this championship is very, very rare indeed. But we'll wait and see what he can do tonight alongside all the others. And myself, Ewan O'Leary, will be joined in a moment by Ed Hunter, and David O'Reilly may well be here as well for us at the Australian Grand Prix. Before that, though, let's have a look at the championship standings coming into this round because, as I say, Mark Schluter is currently racing away with it at the front of the field. 2 victories in 2 races gives him 50 points, 19 more than Zooks, who really challenged him at Sepang at the Malaysian Grand Prix last time out. Tom Odermenger still third after being the only other driver other than Schluter to finish in the top 5 in both races so far. Sander Callas has finished in the top 10 both times. He's 4th ahead of Jeffrey Fournier, who unfortunately didn't finish back at Malaysia. Patrick Hanko is 6th. He's had 2 goes in the top 10 as well. Riven Mercedes got his podium last time out. He moved up to 7th ahead of George Sargianis, Giuseppe Saracino and Mirko Mancini, who rounds out the top 10 in the standings. So far, 20 drivers have got points to their name in the 2025 World Championship, going all the way down to Peter Knapp, who finished at Bahrain but unfortunately didn't at Malaysia. We'll see who is here this time round as we get into the Australian Grand Prix. And as I mentioned, this is very much edging towards the mid part of the season now. Next time out, we'll be in Austria on August the 10th. Take on our 4th round of the championship, then to Great Britain, to the halfway stage, 2 weeks later in Belgium, followed by Singapore 2 weeks after that, USA, Japan and Mexico to round out the season, a place where we haven't ended the season, I don't think ever. We will be there in December for that one. Very good evening to everyone watching along, and good evening to David O'Reilly as well, who is alongside us, hopefully going to be chatting away with us over the course of tonight's racing as well. I've got to say, I really like the Albert Park circuit, David. Not everybody is a huge fan of the changes made to this circuit in the last few years. However, I must say I am a fan of it. It gives a real high-speed section on the way to what was already a high-speed section of corners down there at turn 11 and 12, made it even more high-speed and perhaps a couple of extra overtaking opportunities as well in Formula 1 cars. I'm a big fan personally. I hope you're looking forward to tonight's action as well.
Yes, I am indeed, and it's an interesting thing with that because I've actually attended in person just once this Grand Prix in 2001, and we actually sat at turn 9, which is the one that's no longer there. And I did query the thinking behind getting rid of a big braking zone and how that was going to help overtaking. But I guess in a DRS environment, those long straights can promote overtaking. But there's something about Melbourne, I guess, because for so many years in a lot of sim racing games, it's always been round 1. So we've all not done tons and tons of laps at Melbourne. And the other thing that was very interesting in the pro race, which we had a short while ago, a lot more variation in strategy than we saw in Malaysia. We saw hards, mediums and softs and quite a variety of strategy, which did make it a very, very exciting race all the way down to the end. So fingers crossed we'll see more of the same and even better driving here in World Championship.
Absolutely, we've got 19 drivers here, and the biggest entry we've had so far in 2025, to my knowledge. Had 16 or so at Bahrain and Malaysia, and we've got a few more on the grid this time round. Notable returnee, Jonas Braksok is back again here today. Now, he's a driver who has got a lot of history with the Formula SimRacing World Championship. He's been here on many occasions to try to get his appearances up. Actually, this will be his 65th start, as I'm sure he will start in a few moments' time. He's got 5 pole positions, but he's never won a race. Just on the podium 6 times as well, despite leading over 150 laps. He is, one of those nearly men, if you like, from the history of the Formula SimRacing World Championship. Super excited to see how he can go on. But we're standing on on the fringes of history, David, with Mark Schluter. 2 in 2 to begin the season. Hasn't been done for 4 years. Since Mitty Hoyer did it 3 races in a row at the start of 2021. Schluter can join a very, very exclusive club by winning 3 World Championship races back-to-back here tonight.
Yeah, it would be very, very impressive if he manages to do that. And just as I was about to say something, his name actually popped to the top of the leaderboard. Reuven Meshdi, who has been a big challenger to Mark Schluter, unfortunately had electronic connection issues in round 1 at Bahrain when challenging for the win. Reuven has been showing some incredible pace in qualifying, and if I was a betting man, I'd put a tenner on Reuven taking pole here, which if he can convert that into a lead into Sector 1, it's a tricky track to overtake, and it's going to take a lot of good strategy and some good driving to then get past him. So, yep, Mark could well do it, but I think he's going to have some red-hot competition this afternoon.
Certainly is. Sana Callis is going to be one of those again. He's just inside the top 5 in this qualifying session at the moment. Finished 4th in Malaysia last round, looking to go a little bit better and get that podium this time round if at all possible. Through the final couple of corners, 2 goes at the steering on the way in there, but we go to Schluter. Oh, he slides in. He is purple in the first sector. It's just unravelled towards the end of this lap, and with just over 4 minutes to go, he pulls into the pit lane. Callis did actually move up. He goes to 4th. Meanwhile, a couple of improvements happening further down. Viscott and Zalagianis both coming to the line. Viscott goes over the line. He'll be 14th. That's a bit of an improvement for him, and certainly an improvement in time. He's only 1.4 off of pole at the moment. Zalagianis now over the line as well, something similar. He's 1.8 off of pole. He goes to 16th place. So a couple of nice improvements from those guys there. Mirko Mancini now the only driver actually out on a lap time at all, as most of the drivers start an out lap. But it feels, David, as if it's going to be between Mercedes and Schluter. Oh, and it's not going to be between Mancini. He hits the fence. Is it going to be Mercedes or Schluter, though, to take pole position here? It definitely looks like it will be one of those two to take pole here for the Australian Grand Prix. There is Reuven Mercedes. Just coming out to the exit of the first sector. There it is. Just not quite as quick as what he's managed in the past. And now we go through that turn 9 and 10 section, as you say, that has been there for many years, but no chicane anymore. Just a flowing right-left. Now the long left-hander towards turn 11, as we'll still call it. Now turn 12, the really fast corners through here. It's fantastic layout, and that's purple through the middle sector for Reuven Mercedes. A lot of straight line speed involved in that middle sector these days, and it's a very short one as well, as you can see, just 17 seconds. Now the final sector. This is where the skill comes into it, really. First and final sector of this circuit. Chucked it in there to the third last corner. That was excellent. Now slow speed at turn 15 at Prost, and now bringing it out to the start-finish line, which is just up the road. Is this going to be an improvement to put Reuven Mercedes out of sight? It may well do. I'm not sure it was much of an improvement at all, actually. He's still in the 14.8. Jonas Brakshock, meantime, has gone fastest in the first sector of anybody. He's just inside the top 10, and he's the only driver really improving at the moment. Bit of a snap for the optimal driver just through the middle of that section there. It's not going to be Schluter to get over Mercedes here, because he's already back to pit lane. His session is over. Can Jonas Brakshock take pole position again here at this race? It would be fantastic for him if he can just take these last few tenths of a second out of that car. Now through the final couple of corners he goes, getting on the power, squeezing on nicely out of the final turn. Can Jonas Brakshock return to the World Championship with pole? He goes over the line. It's only 5th position despite his improvements in the first and second sector. It's 5th for Brakshock, but for his team, 4 of the top 5 places all taken up by those guys from the Optimino eSports team. That is a very good qualifying session for them, if indeed it holds to the end.
And I've just spotted Reuven Meshdi is probably just in the nick of time, headed out to do yet another lap, hoping to improve that lap time. I think his PB is a couple of tenths quicker than what we've already seen, so this could be quite a dramatic final lap from Mr. Meshdi.
Cosmo Prosciutto, meanwhile, goes to 7th, but we've got some late times going to come in here. Still a minute left for them to get back around in time. Patrick Hanko goes 6th. The Go Team Racing side, he by the way, is part of that team leading constructor. CMT Go Team Racing team are 3 points ahead of Optimal after the opening 2 rounds in the team's championship. There is Mark Schluter. He probably does have time to just about get round here to the end of the lap. It's over 30 seconds remaining in this lap here, and so fantastic to watch these laps here at Albert Park. We'll follow Mark throughout this lap now, because this is going to be a rip-roaring lap at one of the best venues, in my opinion, for qualifying around the world. Out of the final corner and onto the front straight, he is just about going to make it in time, while some of the others are already actually out on their laps at the moment. Here's turns 1 and 2, though, braking after 100 metres. He misses the first apex, not a great start to the lap, and a slide through turn 2 as well. He's going to need to tidy that up a lot more heading into the rest of this lap. Now, possibly late on the brakes, ready for turn 3, which is quite an open hairpin, really. Just pausing your acceleration through 4 before you get on the power now for a flat-out turn 5, where the wall is there to collect you if your tyres are going off, certainly. Now in towards turn 7, or turn 6 rather. That's a super committed right-hander, especially in qualifying, and it really matters these days. It's your run now right the way through to turn 11. It used to be just making up that short run to turn 9, which didn't used to be a very long section at all, but it's the long run to turn 11 now. Chucking into the left, chucking into the right as well. Watch the curves, as always, through there, that you don't get too crossed up and in the fence. Now Schluter down onto the brakes into what I would describe as the best overtaking opportunity perhaps on this racetrack these days. 13, turn 13 down there. Now 14, again just pausing. Oh, he's off into the wall, and that's Mark Schluter's qualifying session over. I'm not sure he was going quick enough for pole anyway, but he just snags the grass and he spins around into the tyre wall, and Rud Mercedes surely is going to take pole.
Dramatic finish to the pole shootout there. And as you said, he was slightly on the back foot anyway, and outstanding drive by Reuven Meshadi to secure pole. Once the cars have entered pit lane, I'll be going silent for a few minutes during warm up while I do some race direction duties, if you'll excuse me, Ewan.
No worries. We'll catch you again on the other side, ready for the race. But it's Reuven Meshadi who's taken the pole position just in front of Jonas Braxok, actually, who seems to have improved very late on here to get up to second. Mark Schluter then third, only a thousandth of a second behind him, with Zoltzuks and Patrick Hanko rounding out the top 5. Jeffrey Fournier makes it 4 Optiminals on the first 3 rows. Sander Callis and Tom Oldermenger will share row 4, and Oldermenger continues his brilliant start to the season, I must say. Third in the championship after just 2 rounds. Istvan Cisnel and Lucas Viscott round out the top 10. A little bit further down the field, the rest of them, as we just jump forward into that warm-up session at the moment. 11th place has gone to that's a Cisnel there is 11th place. So Cedric Bill next involved, and then Mirko Mancini 13th ahead of Viscott. Then Nando Marset rounds out the top 15 ahead of George Argianis. Andrei Borochkovi is in 17th ahead of Zach Chason and Douglas Simonelli, who are at the back end of the field, 18th and 19th. So biggest entry we've got this season comes here at the Albert Park Street Circuit for the Australian Grand Prix, round 3 of the Formula Sim Racing World Championship. We'll have more reaction from qualifying and indeed preview the race after these messages from our sponsors.
The Sim Racers Performance Guide, your guide to race setup, strategy, driver performance. Dive in deep, learn about suspension, aero, braking, drivetrain, with a 77-page manual packed full of hours of video tutorials as well. Learn how to fully engineer your setup and get more from your sim. Written and tested by real-world racing drivers, proven in Formula Sim Racing and VEC. Understand and optimize it all with the Sim Racers Performance Guide. Quote FSR for a 20% discount off the normal €10 price.
Well, big thanks to, of course, to all the sponsors who make these broadcasts and indeed these seasons of the Formula Sim Racing World Championship possible year after year. It's so great to be back for 2025 for the series, starting all the way back in 2001 at this very venue. The 4th of March 2001, we began the Formula Sim Racing World Championships journey. And it's great that it's still going 24 years later, our 25th season of the World Championship. Visiting Albert Park, as I believe we should, as the place where it all started. It started indeed with Reuven Mercedes taking his second ever pole position in the Formula SimRacing World Championship. He did some of last season, 2024, made 6 appearances, best finish of 9th at Imola, but back again for a full season effort in 2025. Well, on the podium last time out at Sepang after technical problems that we discussed a moment ago at the Bahrain International Circuit. He's now taken a pole position. We'll be looking for what would be the biggest result of his Formula Sim Racing career if indeed he is able to get there. He's actually never won a Formula Sim Racing race despite those now 8 appearances in the World Championship and also 2 appearances in the Pro Championships throughout 2023 and 2024 as well, and in the ACA category as well in 2021. He's been around the series as Reuven Mercedes. And he's going to be taking to the front of the grid here at Albert Park in a few moments' time for 58 laps as it is these days. A very fast race it is these days, actually. Just 80 minutes, less than 80 minutes, actually, from the drivers last year. And it really set up the season with hindsight. Prior to this round, we'd seen at Bahrain the eventual top 2 in the championship, finishing 7th and 8th. Which really gave us a bit of a false look as to what the end of the season might look, but it was about Owen McGorgy versus Yannick Bock last season. They were just 7 tenths apart at this very venue to kick off both of their seasons, really. They finished in the end, the only drivers under in 80 minutes, actually, that race. Manuel Biancalula, the next driver, just on the podium that day. But yes, it was a very, very quick race, and I'm sure it is going to be again this year for another 58 laps. The pole time last year, by the way, the pole time's never really quite comparable, but 1:17.1 was the pole time last year for Owen McGorgy, just 11 thousandths of a second quicker than the rest. And unlikely again to see too many comparisons to that race, although I'll keep going with them anyway. 2-stop races mainly, medium tyre stint for 1 and a hard tyre stint for 2. As we were just talking about with David, it is set to be a bit more of an open strategy race than maybe what we saw at Sepang. Pretty high tyre wear at that venue. That meant quite a lot of stops over the course of that race, as we predicted in the Malaysian Grand Prix. And Nicholas makes his way over the start-finish line there, and just in the background, so will. Is that Oldermenger maybe coming across the line and completing his warm-up session? Anyway, the driver's getting about 5 minutes or so just to get themselves warmed back up again after the qualifying session here. And then they get onto the grid. It's a chance really to take the soft tyres off, which really aren't used very often in race conditions anymore, and just put on the hard tyres, medium tyres, get used to how they feel again after putting them to a side for the qualifying session for obvious reasons. And Sander Callis, the only one left out there on the circuit, even despite the fact time has long elapsed in this warm-up session. He's going to end the session about a second or so behind Reuven Mercedes for what that's worth at this very early stage, i.e. it's not really worth anything. It's not really worth putting too much thought into, to be honest. It's one of those things. And he continues on for another lap, even though the checker flag is waving. The briefing and any last notes from David just ringing in the ears of the drivers at the moment as he instructs them on what they need to do in this race here today. And then in a moment we will see that grid form. Not sure what the rules are about Callis continuing on like this, by the way, even though checker flag has long been waving. Not really sure what the rule is about, whether there's anything against it, but yes, I think we are just waiting for somebody to rejoin, actually. Not sure if that's what we're waiting for at the moment. We are just having a bit of a hold up. It's likely the reason, I think, for that one at the moment. Although, again, Sandokalas making great use of it at the moment and just continuing on. To remind you, of course, he is 4th place in this Drivers' Championship and will be one of those to watch. He's on those front 3 rows here for this Australian Grand Prix. He makes his way over the line again. Ahead of him, Tom Oldermenger, the only other driver outside of Mark Sluter to have been in the top 5 on both occasions. Not particularly qualified up towards the front on either occasion, really. He's raced his way there. Oldermenger qualified 7th in Bahrain. I think he was even lower in the Malaysian Grand Prix. Yeah, he was 10th. But 3rd and 5th, nevertheless, in those respective races, despite the hold-up in qualifying. And a lot about where his speed is lying, really, in the car. Ahead of him, Zoltzuk's 2nd place in the 2nd race this season, Malaysian Grand Prix. And just in behind, Mark Sluter, of course, who took that victory in a row at the start of this season. As I mentioned before, not been done since 2021 when Mitchie Hoyer did it. In fact, the 3rd win ended up being the last win. He clipped a curb at Zandvoort only a few weeks later after taking his 3rd race win at the German Grand Prix it was that year. Into the wall. And the 2 who ended up finishing, only 2 that finished ahead of him in the championship, by the way, Alex Siebel and Ewan Simoncic, actually only finished 8th and 5th that day. So didn't take a lot of damage in the championship, but the momentum was and the confidence was knocked. And Hoyer would only win one more race again in the Formula Sim Racing World Championship. Great to see him return in 2025. I'm not sure that he will, but would be great to see it if he does. He came back and won a race in 2022. I seem to remember he got COVID actually around a similar period, and just getting out of practice, a loss, as I say, loss of momentum, loss of motivation, and only won one race after that, the American Grand Prix of 2022, the classic finale between Colin Spork and Alex Siebel, the end of 2022. No, indeed, just waiting for a driver at the moment, which is why the hold-up in the session. So it should be a quick race. So really, we're not losing any time here tonight. We'll be finishing at the same time we normally would, not early, because it is the Australian Grand Prix and it is very quick around this circuit, that is for sure. As I mentioned before, the very first ever Formula Sim Racing World Championship race happened around here at Australia. Ernesto Giandeligis won the race in 1 hour 28, but braking for that chicane does have quite a lot of time. And indeed, slightly slower cars back then. Heyman Bronze was 2nd, ahead of Benjamin Volkel as well. Not sure I recognise, I'm looking down the names at the moment, not sure I recognise any of them from the days, to be honest. It was a long, long time ago back then. The eventual winner of that season, by the way, finished only 19th that day in Australia and went on to win the title, taking 6 race wins along the way. Artur Mlodzinski of 54 points ahead of a 3-way tie for 2nd, actually. Roy Colby, the very successful World Championship driver, ended up taking some titles along his way. Took 40 wins in the FSR history across the way, but finished 2nd in the first ever World Championship. Ended up taking his first in 2004 after taking a year off in 2003. But sit-back seasons were longer back then, that's for sure. And that's what some will argue. It was harder to win, maybe, because the seasons were so long. But that's how he did it back then. The point system, obviously, only giving 6 or 8 drivers a point each time. Not the same these days. Top 15 getting points. Almost everybody who gets to the end, to be honest, gets points these days. As warm-up comes to a close, and even Sandokalas now is back in pit lane. We were told the race would start at 10 to the hour. That has passed us by. So surely we'll be sending the server forward in a moment, if indeed we have the opportunity to. And indeed, I'll remind you of the grid when we get there as well, but can't do that for the moment. I'll do that when we go forward to the race session in a few moments' time, because we're not quite shifting forward yet. sure why, but yeah, the initial hold-up for waiting for a driver, I believe Matt Tewson had a couple of problems getting back into the server again. But we are now ready to go, and he does make up the 20th driver actually in the field. We were missing one throughout qualifying, but we do have 20. So finally, the drivers are able to get onto the grid and able to start their formation lap in the not too distant future. So we'll bring that grid up when it is possible and go through it. But Ruben Mercedes will take the pole position here effectively and be on pole here for race number 3 of 2025. Here's the back end of the grid. Matt Tewson will start from the back, of course, after only joining after qualifying. But anyway, let's go to the front. Mercedes taking the pole with Mark Sluter just in behind him. Sander Callas third, ahead of Jeffrey Fournier, Zoltzuks and Jonas Braxok, who round out the front 3 rows, which contain 4 Optiminals. Then 3 Go Team cars of Patrick Hanko, Cosmo Patuto and Christian Packwell. It is Tom Oldermenger who then rounds out the top 10, the best of the Vega Valley eSports drivers running out the top 10. Istvan Cisnel is 11th, ahead of Cedric Bill. Berko Mancini, Oldermenger's teammate, starts 13th, ahead of Lucas Viscott. Nando Marsa, 15th, ahead of George Sargianis. Andrei Borotovsky, I'll have a better go his name, 17th place, ahead of Zach Chason and Douglas Simonelli. And Matt Tewson should start at the back of the field in 20th place. David O'Reilly has rejoined me in the commentary box here for the Australian Grand Prix. Good to have you back, David. A little bit of a hold-up ready for this race, but only adds to the anticipation of the 58 laps of fast and furious racing at this very high-speed circuit that we're about to see.
Yes, we did have a slight hitch. One of the drivers who's been doing a lot of practice was having some issues getting into the server. Missed qualifying, and we just held up things for a couple of minutes to allow him a chance to get in, and he's made it in, so hopefully he'll get 58 laps worth of racing this afternoon, and the more the merrier, and great to see 20 people on the grid.
Absolutely. It's the best grid we've had of the season so far, and a really close grid as well. Ruben Mercedes took pole there at the front, as we saw, but Sluter's up there. We've got 4 Optiminals, so Fournier and Sucker up there, Callas as well, one of the ground effect cars. So it's a really strong field up towards the front, and what we saw at Sepang was a number of strong drivers exchanging the lead, strategizing their way through the race, and it was a really entertaining race throughout the Malaysian Grand Prix. Hoping that we get something similar to that here in Australia for round 3.
Yeah, well, certainly the far more strategic options with tyres did make for exciting racing in the pro grid, because we had guys coming out on fresh softs when other guys were on 28 lap old hards on different strats. So it does make it quite interesting when people decide that they want to be fast at certain times, and it really does mix it all up. But I'll leave it to you to see them off.
Well, indeed, we'll just get the lights on in a couple of moments' time as Ruben Mercedes pulls into that first grid slot for the second time in his career. He's looking for his first ever win in the World Championship, of course, making just his 9th appearance in the World Championship this afternoon. The Australian Grand Prix from the Albert Park Street Circuit. 20 drivers pulling into position, ready for the start of this race. It's round 3 of the Formula Sim Racing World Championship in 2025, and in a moment the drivers will look up towards the lights and get this race underway. The sequence will start shortly, and there they go. Lights start to come on now, and the Australian Grand Prix in 2025 is underway. Mark Suter with a good launch alongside Mercedes, and immediately he's got the inside in towards turn number 1. Mercedes tries to squeeze, and he will keep the lead despite the outside line, and there's contact on the way into the first corner there, and it looks like one of the Vega Valley eSports drivers had gone across the circuit and caused carnage in the background. In fact, they've somewhat gotten away with it. Might have been Mancini who went off the road down there at turn number 1, but somehow we get away with it down the back end of the field. From 11th on backwards, it's carnage, and there's a big disconnect in the field, but for the leaders it's a clean start, and Ruben Mercedes executes that pole position into an early race lead.
Yeah, amazing clean start, really. They were very tightly grouped, but showing a lot of discipline, and even into turn 3 complex. So well done to all of them. The next really tight spot for potential collisions is the tight right-hander after the turn 10-11 high-speed chicane. But yeah, fingers crossed. If we get a clean first lap, that'll be a great start to the race.
Absolutely. We've got 1-2 for Optimino eSports early on. As you can see, there's Braxock, who's gone backwards, but his teammates have gone forwards. Jeffrey Fournier got past at Mark Suter on the way down towards turn 11, and that is giving them a 1-2 for the moment. Then it's Sluter in third, ahead of Callas, Zooks, Hanko, Braxock, Pasuto, Single and Oldamenga, who rounds out the top 10 as they complete the first lap of 58 this afternoon at Albert Park. A little bit of a look in the background there from Hanko, who looked up the inside of Zooks but can't do it. This is where the difficulty in overtaking may well begin here at Albert Park. We'll see just how difficult it turns out to be.
So it looks like Sander Callas and Zoltan Zooks are the first two of the hard runners in fourth and fifth. The interesting thing is going to be how close they can maintain their pace with the three medium shod tyres ahead of them. The medium shod runners really need to gap these guys while they're on the hards, because in 12 laps or so, the pendulum will swing the other way because the dead curve is so flat on the hard tyre, and they will start to gain somewhat of an advantage. So the medium shod group of three at the front really need to make this work.
Yeah, and at the moment there is still that small gap there between Callas and Sluter, which is a problem. Pasuto needs to try and get past some of these hard tyre runners as well, because there's four of them in the next 5 cars in front of him. And so does his teammate Patrick Hanko. They're both in amongst the traffic, but for the leaders, they've already got clear. That's what Fournier, Machede and Sluter were trying to do, get to the front of the field and now make some distance on those medium compound tyres. Going to be difficult to do, especially on the front straight here, where DRS is now going to be enabled as they get onto the end of lap number 2. DRS will start to become a feature of this race, if you're within 7/10 of the car in front, of course. And that might well just help these hard tyre runners to stay close. But already you can see Zook struggling to keep with the pace. He's a second or so behind Callas, and everybody else anyway queuing right up behind him here.
And Callas, for the moment, is staying within 0.7. So, as you say, he may well be able to grab a bit of a tow from the medium shod guys and really benefit his hard tyre stint.
Yeah, he's got that 7/10 of a second disadvantage. If he can just stay in the DRS, he'll be okay. It's over a second to Zooks, and now this is critical now for Hanko and Pasuto and all these other guys who are on medium tyres early on here, need to make their way through the field. This is Marza, meanwhile, trying to get past, or trying to stay ahead of Tucson rather. Matt Tucson started the race 20th place and is made a couple of positions of progress already. Off the side of the circuit, just through turn 12, and Marza keeps the place, keeps 17th position. This is, of course, where all the stack-up was earlier on, but this is Zooks still in front of Hanko. Again, needs to make this past Hanko if he can.
There's one guy on the grid who's certainly got his eye in, and that's Istvan Zingel, who 2 hours ago started the pro race. Same strategy, started off on hards, ran very, very well on the hards, and just drove away on the mediums with a one-stop. I struggle to see a one-stop working over 58 laps, but it never ceases to surprise me how long these World Championship drivers can go on a set of tyres.
They are very good at nursing these tyres, that is for sure, and that's going to be the aim for the early part of this race. Go quickly, but nurse the tyres at the front of the field. That is so difficult to do, of course, as Machede and Fournier start to just stretch out a bit of an advantage here in the early part of this race. Mark Struter in third, but he's just over a second behind the two Optimino drivers now. And not only is he not distancing Callas, he's actually maybe even looking slower than Callas in 1 or 2 places here, as Oldamenga's up to 9th, meanwhile Zingel down to 10th, so that is a change of position. But again, what Oldamenga needs to do there, he's on the mediums trying to pass a lot of guys on hard tyres. So into the final sector for these leaders in the top 10. You see a bit of DRS up and down, but not too much really. Fournier was the only one close enough in the top 3. Alice then 4th, Can as well, and Patrick Hanko is probably closest to the driver in front, but there's no way through at turn 1. You're braking possibly late for that right-hander, and it's really not a very sharp corner at all. So
Callas definitely has DRS on Mark Schluter ahead, so that's working beautifully for him.
Well, the problem is, though, what about the front two? Because Mercedes and Fournier are getting away now. It's the problem for Schluter as well, I suppose, but it's no good for Callas either. If those two get away, it's no good keeping the slipstream and the DRS of Schluter if the front two are going to get away anyway.
Well, indeed. I guess if you're putting yourself in Callas's shoes, he's thinking, right, if I can hang on to the third place medium runner while I'm on hards, things might look pretty good when the shoe's on the other foot later on. Although he's pushing it very, very hard, went very wide in the 11-12 chicane there. But he's all really close to Schluter, and with a one-step slower tyre, and at a stage of the stint where the medium tyre really should be on full song. So yeah, I'm predicting Sander Callas to start really giving Schluter a hard time within the next five or eight laps.
Yeah, he will do, that's for sure. And we know that from Callas. He is a strong, consistent driver in this championship. Been here many times before in the World Championship, starting his 71st race here today. 4 podiums to his name, never a victory. He's looking to change that here today, maybe with this strategy that is a little bit different to the rest of those inside the top 4. Although he does have Zolcic not that far behind him on the same strategy as well. Hanko, again, needs to make this pass really on Zooks, or just stay there and save his own tyres for the moment. In fact, Zooks seems quicker than Braxtock and Pursuto at the moment. They seem to be being put in the rearview mirror as it stands, so it's not as urgent for Hanko as I'm saying, but it's the battle for 5th position, and they're about 5 seconds off the lead of Ruben Mercedes now, which is continuing to be extended out front.
Now, what might be really interesting is, because unlike Sepang, Malaysia, all the compounds are very useful here. Even a soft tyre can go 14 or 16 laps. So some of these guys might end up doing a hard, a medium and a soft, which would be quite spicy. So I do find all that stuff quite intriguing, and when it all unfolds itself in the last stint, quite exciting.
It will be. I think Rambo saw something similar last year. In the way of different strategies. McGorgy and Bock were going at the race win, but one started on the mediums, one started on the hards, and they converged in that final stint there with McGorgy on the softer compound to make a pass for the race win, which kick-started his eventual championship winning campaign, of course, in 2025. Unfortunately not a returner in 2025 to try and retain his crown, which is a little bit unfortunate, but these things happen. Callas still just trying to hold on to Schluter at the moment, and just continuing to bleed time a little bit for those Optimino cars out front. Not too much time though. Not too many overtakes happening around the field either. The only notable change in the last couple of months, Zingle has been definitely going backwards. He was in the top 10 not so long ago. Christian Pasquale has taken that place in the not too distant past, and I mean so many others have as well. Bill, Mancini and Iscott have all gone through as well. So it's all been happening there really for Zingle, unfortunately. Not sure entirely why. Maybe he's just not getting to grips with these hard tyres, because none of his friends on those hard tyres have been struggling quite as much as he has.
Yeah, well, Istvan Zingle made it work very well in the pro race, but the pace is different here. These guys are quicker, so it is you cannot cruise when you're in a World Championship race. Hanko, by the way, getting very close to Zoltan Suks now, certainly visually. Really starting to pile some pressure on him. So Dalton Suks is certainly not having it in any kind of relaxed fashion in this fight for 5th place at the moment. He knows he's got a race on.
Yeah, he can't afford to relax at all at the moment, and it's not only guys on mediums actually on the softer compound who are with him right now, because the 2 Go Team drivers are indeed on those mediums, Peugeot as well as Patrick Hanko, but Jens Braxtock also here as well, just feeling himself into this race. I'm not sure how much driving he's done actually between the last time we saw him in the Formula SimRacing World Championship and now, but great to have him back nevertheless. And you'd expect him to be one of the favourites to take this race, but maybe a little bit undercooked coming into this round of the championship anyway. Hanko just up in front here is not going to be challenged by him down towards turn 13, and neither is Zooks. You might just be starting to see the beginnings here of the difficulty at Albert Park of staying close and also actually being able to get past as well. It does seem a little bit tricky in the way of overtaking just so far.
Yeah, well, certainly Hanko, as you pointed out, is on the mediums and Sooks is on the hard. So Hanko's got to make this work or face the fact that he is not going to be anywhere near Zoltan Sooks later in the race when their fortunes are reversed in terms of tyre compound.
But how much of an advantage is the track position that they'll have and do continue to have at the moment is still going to be here, because I say so far it has been tricky in the way of overtaking. Now down towards turn 6 again, expecting this to be a chance, but it's the run out of here that you really need, or maybe a run towards turn 11. And we did see this on the opening lap, Fournier, or was it lap 2, Fournier getting past Mark Sluter on the way towards turn 11. If you get a run out of turn 6, you do have a chance here, but Hanko is again not quite close enough. Maybe stay close through 11 and 12 maybe. Again, that's tricky. Now there's no DRS on the run down through here, so no chance to go through on the way down towards turn 13. It's very, very difficult. So even with some good runs out of corners here, Hanko is finding this difficult, and as you say, the hard tyre runners will start to grow into this race now as well as we approach lap 10.
Yes, and of course that turn 11-12 complex, that really high-speed chicane, it is so aero-dominated that you've just a bit of aero wash off the car in front is just going to really make it tricky for you to follow closely through that high-speed section. So they need a clean run on a DRS section like where they are now approaching turn 3, and Hanko is looking very aggressive. Stoops really covering the line. Oh, and Hanko's just overcooked it.
And there's the danger.
Yep.
That's the danger. If you're going to make a move, you've got big risk round here, and Brackstock now is going to have to sort of punish Hanko and push him down to 7th here surely as they come through turn 6. Can Brackstock maybe take advantage of this now? The fact is a lot closer on the way towards turn 11. Doesn't quite look like it, but yeah, Hanko just gets it slightly wrong in his desperation to get into the top 5.
And full credit to Zoltan Sooks. He was clearly defending the corner, but he did leave plenty of room outside him. But Hanko just went in a little bit hot into turn 3 there, and it just keeps turning, and it's quite slow. It's a very tricky complex, and paid the price. In fact, he's very lucky that he didn't lose another place, because he was well and truly into the kitty litter.
He probably was. As Ruth Mercedes now makes his way out to the final corner, and we've got our first retirement. Simonelli is into the retirement, and so is Zach Chason is in pit lane anyway. For those Squire Nation eSports cars going a lap down already in this race, and one of them pulling the plug already as Ruben Mercedes extends his lead to nearly 2 seconds. Fournier has just been losing time in these last couple of moments, and now look at this. He's right being challenged by Sluter in the background there through turn 3. Just wonder where all this has come from for Geoffrey Fournier, suddenly losing about 2 seconds.
Yeah, well, certainly it's taken some pressure off Ruben Mercedes in the lead with a 2-second gap to Fournier.
Let's see. So I was just pausing to see if there was going to be a run for Sluter actually towards the fast left-hander, but not this time. And they will to do it another time as Sluter tries to close in again. But at what point does Sander Callas start to come back into this? He's certainly the best running of those who have started on hard tyres this afternoon. He's the guy furthest up the field of those contenders, and that gives him a decent position in this race, at least for the moment. Just 4 seconds off of the lead and only a second and a half off of these guys. But again, I'd keep coming down back to the track position thing. Even if he's on newer tyres later, I'm not sure what he's going to be able to do with it on the evidence of what we've seen so far.
Yes, well, that is very true, unless he's somehow managed to time his pit stop to come out on a lovely set of mediums when somebody else is on a bit of a tired set of hards. The other thing that might be quite interesting is because this Van Singel made a one-stop work quite well in Pro, 50 laps, 58 laps, I think a one-stop is just out of reach, but what if you just pop on a set of softs and smash in 12 incredibly quick laps to go for a kind of an undercut? That's an option as well.
Yeah, there's plenty available here in this round of the championship, which is what we want to see in the Formula Sim Racing World Championship, that's for sure. We want the strategy to be open, creates much more interesting racing. But Ruben Mercedes is really turning this on now. nearly 3 seconds the gap to back to Fournier here, who's allowing his teammate to get out to a big lead, or maybe he just can't stay with him. To being behind him and being held up is certainly an advantage, though, to what is going on at the moment, as Suter goes past the site of where he crashed in the final lap of his qualifying session. I'm sure he doesn't run quite that wide again, because it would be a disaster for him again. Comes over the line again, end of lap 12. So over a 20% distance here already completed, but wonder how long we're going to go on for here, and maybe what it tells us about later on in the race. As you say, 8 laps longer than the pro race, but wonder if these guys are, any of them, thinking about maybe a one-stop race.
Yeah, that would be, I think, a pretty bold move, and definitely, I think Fournier is holding up Schluter, because Schluter has dropped out of the 19s and into the 20s now, whereas Ruben Meshdi is banging out laps in the mid to high 19s, 1 minute 19 and a bit. So yeah, he's definitely benefiting from his teammate providing inadvertently a bit of an obstacle for Schluter.
Absolutely, it's the advantage of Optimal having so many cars in this race. They are second place in the Teams Championship, by the way, coming into today, behind Go Team Racing, just 3 points behind, in fact, and with the current results, they would certainly be taking that position over of the best team so far in the World Championship for 2025. Teams have been changed a little bit this season. You can have more than 2 in a team these days, and that is a change from 2024. And indeed all the years previous, actually, since teams have come into existence and been a thing here in the World Championship. Again, Schluter gets close before turn 1, but I get the feeling he's just almost struggling to follow in the dirty air. There's some classic old F1 language, that is, but every time he gets close, he just seems to really struggle to stay close at the sort of distance you need to be if you're trying to make a move.
Looks like Hanko and Zooks are having a good old fight through the turn 3 complex. Zooks showing him the edge of the track and not wanting to give up the position. And asserting his right as the driver on the inside to determine the line, and a little bit of wheel banging.
And the 2 teammates could well be reunited here for Go Team and maybe for Optimal as well, as Hanko tries to go around the outside. It's a long way around there, though, and they all get into turn 11, one after the other. Zooks will hold the place, and look at the dirty air now. That's how difficult it gets through there. Look at Cosmo Prosciutto as well. He's on the back of Jonas Braxok now, coming down towards 13. Tom Oldermengo arrives on the scene as well. It all calms down, but you're right, that was a fantastic little battle through the first sector. Hanko showing everybody else that it can be done, but it's hard work making passes around here.
Going to get interesting these next few laps, because I think the medium shod runners have had the best of their tyres now, and obviously they're all on a bit of a deg curve, but the degradation curve on the hard tyre is just a lot flatter. It just loses a tiny bit each lap, doesn't dramatically go away, and I'm just sensing that's starting to happen now, because Callis is certainly not being dropped anymore by Schluter in 3rd place, and I wonder when Schluter and the other medium tyre runners are going to pit. I think it's going to be probably between here and lap 19 we'll see the medium tyre runners pit, but then as you suggested, Callis has got to do something good with the remainder of that stint to be in a good position when he pits for softer tyres and comes back out to do battle with them. Maybe that's when they put on the softs. Maybe they bang on the softs and go like hell to be in a great position for their final stop. I can't wait to see it unfold.
It's something that we speculate about quite often, actually, about putting on the soft tyres and just seeing what might happen, because it's not something that's done very often really anymore. The soft tyres in the race not used too much. I'm sure we've seen them from anybody up front actually in the race yet this season, in either of the races at Bahrain or Malaysia, but after all, this is a different circuit and a different kettle of fish, certainly. In the last lap, by the way, the last couple of laps, Lucas Viscott has been off the road down at turn 12, and he's now down to 18th place. He's got a long race of recovery ahead of him if he wants to score any points this afternoon, although he will hope for issues for those up ahead. That's really his only hope if he wants to get any points, and here are the potential for that as the battles continue here. Shoot's still in front of Hanko. Those mediums holding on well. 16 laps gone now. We know we're over a quarter distance here. Those mediums still look better than the hard compound tyres, although it must admit when Callis's hard tyres look even stronger. He's catching up those two now. Fournier and Schluter are being caught by Callis at the front.
Yeah, indeed. I think the softs here are wearing like the mediums wore at Malaysia, and the mediums are wearing like the hards wore at Malaysia. This track is just not as tough on tyre wear. You haven't got those long, high-speed, sustained G corners, which are really, really taking it out of your tyres. So it's allowing these guys to run a softer compound for much longer, which is fascinating.
And they really are going a lot longer into this race this time around, even those on medium tyres in some cases. Again, Schluter close to Fournier, but he's not going to go through. About Hanko, can he make a pass here on either of the optimal drivers that he finds himself in between at the moment? Oldermenger's got past Prosciutto, so he's no longer got a teammate up here either, and you can see a noticeable gap now behind these three where Oldermenger is now. I was talking in warm-up actually about his qualifying versus race performances here, Tom Oldermenger, and it's clear that he races far better than how he can qualify, and proving that again here today, up into 8th place despite qualifying a couple of positions below that, and you'd imagine that won't be the end for him as either as we get towards 1/3 distance already. Actually, Schluter again closes on Fournier, but the gap to Mercedes continues to grow out front.
Yeah, 4 seconds is a healthy margin at this stage of the game. So Callis still the first of our hard runners, followed by Zoltan Sukes, the second of our hard runners, but Callis making a much stronger fist of it, nearly 5 seconds up the road from Zoltan Sukes.
On average, by the way,
Hanko pitting, by the way. Patrick Hanko pitting to get rid of the mediums.
So now this race starts to get interesting with strategy. 41 to go, and he comes in already, as does his teammate Christian Pasquale, actually, from 10th he was at the time. And now there could be a bit of awkwardness here. It's going to be awkward, isn't it? Oh, very awkward. The pit lane, oh dear, and he's not parked very well, Pascal. The teammates there very nearly tripping over each other. It's something we maybe don't talk about enough here in RF2, but as always, you can't drive through each other in the pit lane like in other simulators. You've got to figure it out amongst yourselves, and that was a bit of an awkward moment.
Oops, and he's grabbed the hards. 18 laps in, grabbing the hards. He is not going to do 40 laps on them, so he's locked himself into a two-stopper and off to do the long patient stint on the hards and see where he ends up.
We'll find a bit of free track space as well. I wonder whether Hanko is going to have that for much longer. Zingel's just in front of him in 10th, but Zingel's on hards as well, so newer hards versus the old ones that have done 18 laps now, and that could be quite a quick catch. As now in come, is that the front two both in, or is that just second place? No, it's just Fournier. Fournier's in, but Mercedes is losing time, that's for sure. 4 seconds is now the gap to Schluter. It was about 4.5 to him. So Fournier into the pit lane. This is really starting to kick off now as the leaders start to wonder about where they're going to come out in terms of traffic.
Yeah, Mercedes' times have eroded significantly. He's now into the mid to high 20s, and looking at his lap times, the performance of his tyres have just started to drop off. And in fact, Schluter is slightly quicker than him at this point in time, but similar erosion of pace. So Schluter may still make a good race of this. Which of these guys are going to pit first?
There's a little bit of racing for Fournier to do just on the exit there with one of the Go Team drivers. It was Prosciutto, by the way, who pit already, not Pasquale. I misread that, sorry, but they've got similar names. Prosciutto coming into pit lane. He's now 12th with those hard tyres on. But there's Schluter. He almost seems free, doesn't he, of the constraints that were being put upon him by Geoffrey Fournier in front. He seemed to just be being slowed down, and instead of really burning himself out there, Schluter trying to make the overtake, it seems that he's just decided to save tyres and push on. See how much further he continues on now, though, because Riv Mercedes in from the race lead.
Oh, indeed. I'll sit on board with Mercedes and see what tyres he puts on. Yeah, gone for hards as well.
The expected thing to do, really. And as Braxton comes, did he come in as well? No, he didn't. Sorry, misreading that as well. But Mercedes out the pit lane. Look at that clean air in front of him. He's got a way to go to get to Oldermanger, who surely is going to pit before long as well with those mediums on. And those Pasquale's next, sorry. He might well not pit in the next couple of laps. But anyway, not too much to worry about there for him, as Mark Schluter continues to lead. Now, Callis is going to be unleashed as well. Both of these guys actually are unleashed from the group that they've just been in here. We'll see what kind of pace they can put on here before they both come into pit lane.
Well, indeed, and see if they can do on their 20-lap old hard tyres something similar to what the leaders can do on brand new hards that haven't yet been warmed up. So, yeah, they've got to do their best for these next 10 laps or so to try and cement a good fighting position for the closing stages of the race. Schluter's going around again. Schluter is making these medium tyres work beautifully. That's a 20-lap stint now on the medium and running still at good pace, running in the mid 120s, very consistent.
Oldermanger comes in very early in the lane actually, but goes across and he takes the hard tyres as well, I believe. So we'll see what the undercut's like. Fournier already goes past, and a number of drivers actually. Hanko's going to go past as well. He's going to slot himself into that gap, I think, just in front of Prosciutto. Yes, he will. So around where he was before for Oldermanger, even despite those guys on newer tyres running around the other part of the circuit. This is Zooks and Braxton. Well, on the hard tyres for Optimal eSports, who as a team have played this quite smartly, I think, by splitting their strategies between mediums and hards on the start of this race.
Yeah, well, Callis is running well, very close to Schluter now, as obviously, you know, the advantage of Schluter's tyres have dropped off, and Callis is maintaining a very, very small gap to Schluter. He's got it. When's he going to pit? He's got to pit soon, unless he's going to go for a one stop, which would be quite incredible. Yeah, he's going around again. Wow.
Well, maybe it is possible. Maybe he is trying it. I mean, would be pretty extraordinary, but
well, if
just
he can
never know.
If he can do 25 on the medium, he can do 30. He can do 33 on the hards. No question. So just a case of whether how he maintains his pace.
Exactly, because Mercedes is already only 12 seconds behind him. If we assume they're both going to make one more stop from now to the finish, then he's got 12 seconds effectively to play with. But don't forget, when he makes his pit stop here, Schluter, he'll be on newer hards as he's starting to get a bit ragged now. That was through turn 6. He was just a little bit wide into 7, and it sort of spills out, and you very nearly hit the wall, such as the speed of these cars these days. So very nearly got himself into the fence, but he's okay and still going on. It's clear though he's not quite as quick as Callis, who's still running out there. He might be going deep into this race as well. We don't know that either at the moment.
Well, you would think he's got to run at least 5 or 7 laps longer than the medium runners, and you know, I think you can do 30 on the hards without too much trouble. So now Schluter, or both of them pitting, Schluter and Callis.
Wow.
Both pitting. Schluter will be coming off the medium. Callis will be coming off the hard. That makes Schluter's stint pretty impressive, that he's matched somebody else on a harder tyre.
Yeah, very interesting indeed that Callis and Schluter have had to come in at the same time. Mercedes got past Pasquale, by the way, on that last lap, and he's flying away from him. Mercedes now getting into 3rd position as it's on the top. Optimal eSports 1, 2, 3, albeit a little bit false in the way that the order is at the moment. Callis goes for another set of hards, Schluter for another set of mediums. So he's not doing the one stop because he's going to use both compounds. He just hasn't bothered trying to do it. He's on another set of mediums.
Well, I'll stick my neck out and say that means he's going to bolt some softs on at the end, because we're 23 laps in. 23 and 23 is 46, and it's a 58-lap race. So fingers crossed, we might get to see somebody in 2025 in a Formula Sim racing car put some soft tyres on and go crazy.
That could be a very, very exciting final few laps for us to look forward to at the end here tonight. As we go through some of the other drivers who have already stopped here today. Tom Oldermenger down to 10th now. He's one of the drivers who switched compounds compared to first stint compared to second. He was on the mediums. He's now on the hards. Schluter needs to use some of that newer compound and fresher compound now, though, as Mercedes moves up to second, because Zooks is in. He's been on the podium so far this season, of course. Second place at the Malaysian Grand Prix 1 round ago. He changes his tyres and now gets himself back out onto the circuit on some medium compound tyres. Hanko goes past. Oldermenger will not quite go past on this occasion. Hanko still in behind Callas, don't forget. It should be in the order at the moment. Mercedes, Fournier, Schluter, Callas, then Zooks, I think. Well, I guess Hanko, isn't he, just in front as well. So the bottom of the short of it is that Mercedes should be our race leader. And it's about who can chase him from here. Fournier just doesn't seem as quick when they're at a straight race between one another. The only other questions I've really got are about Schluter and Callas, who have got their strategies still to work out.
Yeah, well, I'm remembering back to Bahrain, and Zoltan Zooks was very impressive with his tyre strategy in Bahrain. We just totally couldn't understand why he pitted so early at one point, but he just decided that was the middle stint in the race where he really wanted to be quick, and he came out 5 seconds up the road from a driver he'd been fighting with for the first 20 laps, and absolutely did a fantastic job on strategy as well as of course driving. Brackshot pitting, now Ruben Meshidi back into the lead.
And Pasquale trying to do his best for his teammates as well here by holding back Geoffrey Fournier for third place, or now second as Brackshot comes in, as you say. So Fournier needs to make this pass rather soon so that he can stay with Mercedes, try and get the speed, but Pasquale won't let him. Look at that, down the inside, squeezing himself through, and Geoffrey Fournier takes second place. Pasquale makes a bit of contact with him, in fact, through turn 3. It seemed to me as if he was just trying to hold him back to help Mark Schluter as much as possible. Don't forget, Pasquale's on very old hard tyres compared to Fournier, who's got about 20 laps fresher tyres on than he has. But he's tried to hold him up as much as possible. It has worked to a degree. Mark Schluter's not that far away, but a good pass from Fournier, decisive when it needed to be.
I've just gone back to look at it, and a beautiful move, very, very assertive move up to the inside, but very, very clean. And I think it somehow took Christian Pascal by surprise slightly, and there ended up being a tiny bit of contact between Pascal's front wing and Fournier's gearbox, but it didn't look anything onerous or deliberate. But yeah, a very clean and aggressive overtake. Nice to watch.
It's always great to see.
And Pasquale pitting now, by the way.
Yes. Thanks for that. I hadn't seen that, but yeah, I get the feeling he just fulfilled his job there. Try and slow down, get in the way as many as Schluter's rivals as he possibly can, and then pull into the pit lane, change tyres, which is what he's about to do now.
Schluter fastest man on track at the moment, but there's only half a tenth in it between him and Meshidi. But Meshidi on hard, Schluter on medium. Yeah, Schluter, as you said, Schluter put the mediums back on, and Ruben Meshidi put the hards on. This is going to be where he builds his victory. If he can maintain this sort of gap on Schluter with a tyre delta between them, medium to hard, that will be impressive.
Yeah, exactly. Can Fournier do a job for his teammate here, though? This could be really crucial as far as the race is concerned. We're not quite halfway through yet, so there's plenty of racing still to play out here. And a 7-second gap has been built in less than half the race. It can be closed as well in the second half of the race, which still has over 30 laps of it left yet. But Schluter's biggest goal here has got to be to get past Geoffrey Fournier before too long, because otherwise this gap will continue to grow in the same way that with Pasquale getting stuck behind or in front of Fournier, I should say, he was able to control the gap. The same's happening here. Schluter through turn 1 needs a good run through 2, and I don't think he's quite got it on this occasion with the DRS. Needs to be a lot closer than that. As we approach the halfway point in this race, bringing third commentator Ed Hunter as well to chat along with us for the second half of the Australian Grand Prix. It's finally poised at the moment, Ed, but this is pretty important for Mark Schluter, and Jeffrey Fournier. Schluter needs to get past to try and make use of that tyre advantage.
Yep, and he's getting into the DRS zone again through towards turn 10 here, and again this is going to be very, very marginal. The door opens on the inside. Jeffrey Fournier goes very, very wide. So Fournier was trying to do for Schluter what we saw Christian Pascal do against Fournier earlier on, and unfortunately he was not able to quite do so because Schluter's pace on the mediums has been really, really strong in those high 118s, whereas Fournier's been in the mid-19s and Rumachete in the low 19s as well. So yeah, the medium tyre is performing better at the moment, but Mark Schluter, of course, he's made one move, now he's got 7.2 seconds to Rumachete, and the reason the Go team had to go for the strategy is because Rumachete beat them to the pole position. It's forced Mark Schluter to get a bit more creative on strategy, get the medium stint into play earlier on. So now he's in clear air again. Let's see if he can keep these low 118s up. 118.7 the last lap. Fastest man on track though is Janos Braxok, who's also switched to the mediums. He's in 7th, trying to catch and pass Zolt Zux, who again, like him, is on the medium tyres, having switched a couple of laps ago.
Yeah, they're
impressive.
both on the same. Sorry, David, go on.
I was just going to say impressive stuff. I mean, coming into this race, a lot of the drivers were saying, well, qualifying is really important because you can't overtake here in Melbourne. Okay, Schluter was on 1 step faster tyre than Fournier, but both of them excellent drivers. And he got on his gearbox, got close enough, and got the job done beautifully. So you can overtake here, but you need a bit of help from being on the right rubber at the time. And as you said, as Ed said, he's got the bit between his teeth now, because really what he wants to do is catch Reuven Meshidi. But wow, that would be impressive if he can, with a 7.2 second gap after 28 laps. That was all. It was just great to see an on-track pass at the front for a podium position.
Yeah, we haven't had too many of those. Were you not surprised though to see not see Fournier defending a little bit harder for that, because Pasquale really did defend while Fournier was trying to go through, and there's nothing out of the ordinary, nothing unfair from Christian Pasquale, but he certainly defended there to try and help his teammate out. It didn't seem that Fournier really helped Machete out very much at all there. I mean, naturally he would have slowed Schluter down for a little bit, but if he'd have defended a bit harder, kept the inside before turn 11, have held back Schluter for another few laps, and what we're seeing right now with the gap closing might well not be happening, at least not to the same degree as Single gets down the inside. Nice pass into turn 1.
Yeah, sorry about that, just had to explain there. Good to see Isvan Single on the move. He got his best finish in the Pro Championship here. I think it was here last year where he finished P7 as well, so that was a good move there on Bill, who was just trying to avoid the medium shot optimal there. Now Mancini might start to sweat just a little bit, knowing that Single is coming for that P11. So good stuff from the Hungarian to keep himself in play. Optimal need as many cars as high up the field as they can get them, so that they can use them as and when they're available, of course. But yeah, I think going back to Jeffrey Fournier, I think Pascal's defending he was defending a lot more than you maybe would expect or anticipate, whereas I think Jeffrey Fournier sort of defended a little bit, but then sort of realised with DRS that if he tried to block that one, it was going to be basically an airplane crash into turn 12 essentially. So decided discretion was the better part of valor in that circumstance. Now here is Zux and Braxok, if I'm not mistaken, both trying to work together here. Braxok on the mediums is rapidly catching. Well, he's lapping it's Braxok is lapping slightly slower than Patrick Hanko, sorry. And I think Zux just had a bad lap, which has put Braxok ahead of him, essentially. So that's what's happened there. So yeah, Janos Braxok, of course, great to see him. Such a legendary driver, one of those drivers that always threatened to win in FSR World Championship, but had a couple of near misses, never quite had the strategy fall. The cards didn't quite fall his way. And having him come back this season is a great boost for us, and could well be the opportunity that he needs as well with Optimal to try and take that first career win. So of course at the moment still a lot of work to do, a lot of cars to pass, but a podium is not out of the question for Janos Braxok then, as we cut to reigning pro champion Cosmo Prosciutto, who's back 2022 pro champion Cosmo Prosciutto. I forgot what year it was there temporarily, but he's right behind Tom Oldermenger in this fight for 8th position.
It's definitely one of the years. He is a previous champion.
Of course, Patrick Hanko, just ahead of Braxock, who is the reigning pro champion.
There you go. There you go. And doing rather well here at the moment. Top 5 for him. This is Zingle, just behind Mancini now for 11th place. For the Vega Valley eSports drivers. Of course, I think it was Mancini who went spearing across turn 1. Somehow avoided everybody, but now he's going to be overtaken by Zingle. Down the inside. Oh, by side through turn 1. And we haven't seen that very much here tonight. Not since lap 1 anyway. And maybe that's why. It's a real tight squeeze through that first chicane there. They only just made it out the other side.
Yeah, you were talking about him spearing into turn 1. He almost manifested it again for poor Mirko, but luckily he comes out the other side mostly unscathed. And Singel very gratefully takes that 11th position. Big gap to Pascal next up the road though. So it could be a while before we see another super move from Singel. And now we cut back to Prosciutto, who is keeping the pressure on Oldermenger. Both of them on the hard tyres, of course. Prosciutto has been on them slightly longer, but he is matching what Tom Oldermenger is doing in front of him and taking a few risks there, going into Clark, sort of turn 13 there near the end of the final sector as well. So it's interesting to see this back and forth between those, even on similar strategies. You might see someone pit 3 laps earlier than the driver ahead and then start to catch them. Because they're just getting a little bit more confident, a little bit more into their groove then. And of course, Tom Oldermenger is up against a driver of a very, very similar level to him in Cosmo Prosciutto. Both of them very, very top contenders in the Pro Championship with a couple of runs here and there in the World Championship. Look how late Cosmo is on the brakes into turn 3 as well. He just seems to have a lot more confidence in these mediums, but he's getting very far over the curb as well. And this is a pass or bin it into the wall scenario, and Cosmo is flirting with disaster.
Did find the fence there, definitely found the fence coming out of turn 5, just grazed it through Whitefoot. Now he comes onto the long straight, which it is now, through turn 9 and 10. Not really corners anymore. It's gentle bends in the road before the really fast 11 and 12 that we've had for years at this venue. Smoothly through, no particular problems for Prosciutto, but yeah, he is pushing here at the moment. I get the feeling, David, that Oldermenger's run of top 5s might be coming to an end here tonight. You know, the strategy of putting the mediums on, making up positions early did work in a couple of cases. He did get 1 or 2 positions, but in terms of getting that top 5, which he's been able to get for the first 2 rounds, this is looking a little bit more difficult for him now.
Well, indeed, there's a lot of pace out the front, isn't there? And from 8th, that would be a good achievement, but yeah, never say never. What have we got? We've got 25 laps left, is that right? Yeah, 25 laps left. A lot of racing to happen yet, but yeah, let's see if Tom can shine in the final third of the race as he has been in our recent events.
It's often been a case of qualifying a little bit lower and then finishing in the top 5. For example, in Malaysia last time round, qualified 10th, still finished 5th. But maybe a circuit where it's a little bit easier to make up the places than what it has been here. This is Sander Callas, who started the day on the hard tyres. He's still on the hard tyres now, but is he putting himself into the frame here for a podium by catching Geoffrey Fournier here, Ed? It seems that Fournier is just losing a bit of speed for whatever reason. He's on the same strategy as Mercedes, but now he's 11 seconds behind his teammate.
Yeah, and Sander has actually been really consistent in his laps. 3 laps ago, 1:19.0, 1:19.2, and then another 1:19.2 he's pumped in, so he's about half a second a lap quicker than Geoffrey Fournier. Well, actually 3/10, sorry, not quite half a second. But and in fact, that last lap, Fournier has fought back, both setting 1:19.5s, but our 2 leaders are in the 18.8s matching each other. So Mark Schluter was gaining a little bit, but now Ruben Machete is fighting back and getting the gap nearly back up to 2 seconds again. So yeah, Ruben is responding to the pressure from Mark Schluter. And we saw this a little bit in Bahrain when they fought each other, didn't we? Where they would be swapping positions, they'd be so closely matched. Now there are different strategies. There's sort of a bit of shadow boxing going on here as we see Ruben is about to lap Matt Toussaint near the back of the field, of course. So Matt Toussaint still just outside the points paying positions, but because his teammate George Salagianis has got that crucial 15th position at the present moment as well. So Matt Toussaint will be hoping for a little bit of attrition to help his own chances and or just to stay out of the way of Ruben Machete then in the next couple of moments. As now we cut back to the Prosciutto Oldermenger squabble. And for Tom Oldermenger, I really think his best chance is if the medium runners really start to fade ahead of him, particularly Braxok and Zux. That would help Oldermenger at least get into the top 6. I don't see Mark Schluter quite losing enough ground to fall into Oldermenger's clutches. But yeah, it could be interesting if Optimal have got sort of half the strategy wrong and half the strategy right with all the cards they had to play in this race, essentially.
You know what's not been happening, and you just touched on it. Mark Schluter is not catching Reuven Meshadi, and this was Mark Schluter's time to shine. Mark's on the medium, Reuven Meshadi is on the hard, and he's had that moment where the medium tyre is going to be lovely, and then I think they're 12 laps into this stint. It was around lap 21, lap 22 where they pitted, somewhere around there. And so now the medium is not showing him any advantage, and Reuven has managed to hold him off on the hard, and probably will have the chance to have a softer tyre next time round. So yeah, Reuven's looking very, very strong at this stage.
He is. We've sort of gone past that point now, yeah, where the mediums are better, newer and softer tyres on board Mark Schluter's car not so long ago, but those have very much gone away now, and the gap's still 7 seconds. He's weathered the storm nicely at the moment as Mercedes, and that could set him up nicely for his first ever win in the Formula SimRacing World Championship. Just as I say that, he ends up losing a load more time there to Schluter, making a bit of a mistake. Maybe it's just fluctuating in the gap, but that is developing out front. Braxok and Hanko, meanwhile, battling away for 5th position. This is Jonas Braxok, who had a bit of a look last lap. He's going to have a proper one this time, surely, down at turn 3. He braked. Oh, no, it's almost like a replay. Like watching a replay of the previous lap. Braxok not quite brave enough on the brakes that time, Ed, to actually get himself down the inside at 3.
Yep, there we go. We also just seen a move here. Bad news for Peugeot, because Pascal, whoa, who swapped, of course, 10 laps ago to the mediums, is now burning them up through turn 3 by power sliding there behind Oldermenger, who again nearly taps the wall. He understeers out so wide on those hard tyres there. But yeah, Oldermenger just about holding on for the time being. But now Christian Pascal on those much fresher tyres is going to be a big, big threat here, as now Braxok is almost immediately caught back up to the back of Hanko. So we've got one of our pro champion who's got one podium to his name in his career so far, one of our less experienced, reasonably experienced drivers in this World Championship field, but one still, compared to Janos Braxok, Patrick Hanko is a definite newcomer. Braxok's got so much experience, and he's using it to good effect here to try and keep the pressure on Hanko. But yeah, Patrick has soaked it up well so far, and Braxok, the more he gets stuck behind here, the more it brings Zux into play as he starts to catch as well. So he could have 2 Optiminals buzzing closely behind him, trying to get that 5th position off the Go team.
It's going to be busy for Hanko here, but he's going to have his hands full. But Braxok and Zux at the moment can't really find their way past, and that's going to be a problem in the remainder of this race. As far as the championship goes, and those who are up towards the front in that so far, Mark Schluter, of course, still second, which is going to extend his lead overall, but he will lose points for Mercedes. Of course, Mercedes didn't score anything at Bahrain, though, and so starts today 32 points behind the German. The run of race wins will come to an end, though, if things stay as they are. Tom Oldermenger's third, you can see him on the screen there, at 20 points behind coming in today, only 8th at the moment, which would be another loss of 13 to Schluter, so be a pretty big dent in his early hopes here, as Pascal actually gets onto the back of him now, and surely he's going to be working his way past shortly. Pascal's on better tyres here. He pitted later, and they are softer tyres, what Tom Oldermenger's got on, but he is not able to go through at turn 11 and 12. And again, stuck behind again. We've really seen a lot of this in the race so far, David, as Mark Schluter comes in.
Oh, there we go then. So Mark being serviced and getting some hard times going on then. So Mark Schluter going to the end of the race then. He just gets jumped on track at least by one of the MV Concourse cars, either Viscott or Bartovsky, who's filling in for Jase Latinen in this particular race in Melbourne there. But yeah, Mark Schluter now having that final stop out of the way, he's trying to undercut to try and close in on Machete. So it will be fascinating to see what Optimals decide to do, if anything. They might just decide not to react to this at all, as Christian Pascal, by the way, purple middle sector on that final lap as he sets a 1:19.5, still slower than what Machete is actually doing, interestingly. And Fournier too, both going a lot quicker on their set of hard tyres then. So Machete keeping the pace up, and you've got to think he had that 7-second buffer. He's not going to feel too packed just yet, but it'd be really interesting to see if Schluter's able to make ground quickly here.
It was close to the wall, wasn't it, for Cosmo Peugeot? Goodness me. There's Machete, unmoved by Schluter's move to come into the pit lane. Now, what do you make of that, David, that pit stop for Schluter? He's pitted with 20 laps to go. He put new hard tyres on instead of going for the blast-on softs that we were thinking he might do a little bit later on. A really long stint on mediums to begin with. He just didn't seem to really have actually used that to any sort of benefit later on in the race.
Well, no, interesting, isn't it? Because I think he went to lap 24 on the medium, and he'd only done 15 laps on his second set of medium, so something wasn't to his liking, and decided to throw the dice on another set of hard. So, yeah, it would be very interesting to hear from him what his thoughts were there. Hard one to follow, because Reuven obviously also on the hards, and similar length into the stint. I think Reuven Machete stopped about lap 20. He's about he's on about 19 on the hards, so he could very easily do another 6 or 8 laps on the hards if he wants to. And he's in the box seat really. He's holding all the cards with a 25-second lead. So yeah, that's probably a pit stop plus 5 seconds, and he can jump on to the medium if he wants to.
He's got the undercut at the moment as Schluter, but just how long is this going to go on for? Because he's got Hanko, Braxtor and Zooks right in front, and surely the Optimino aren't going to pull those guys out of this before Schluter gets there. The team games have been going on for both Go Team and Optimino so far in this race, and they're surely going to continue. So it's hard to see how this really works out for Schluter at the moment as Braxtor continues his quest to try and get past Patrick Hanko at the moment. He's getting ever further away from doing it, it looks like right now as well. Another close battle is happening between Fournier and Callis, but similarly, Ed, it's been very difficult to overtake so far, and it is remaining that way right now as well.
Yeah, I mean, it should never be too easy to overtake. Melbourne is one of the trickier ones where you really do have to have that tyre advantage of at least sort of a second or a second and a half, ideally, to get through. Schluter, though, is now pumping in the purple time, so that switch, I think I sort of agree with David. It felt a little bit like he was getting frustrated, he wasn't catching a Reuben, and he decided to switch to the hards to just try and throw something at the wall to see if it can change the outcome of this race at the moment. But yeah, Reuben Machete knows that he can sort of pit whenever he likes, essentially, and know that it's unlikely Schluter will come out ahead, but he is pitting now, so it seems that either this was the plan anyway, or this is in response to Mark Schluter.
Let's see as he gets up on the jacks, back down again, and he's off and away. Sorry, let's see just where he rejoins first of all. Hanko's going to be coming past in a moment, or is he? If he gets in front of Hanko, it's a big win for Machete. Even though Zoltzuks pits in, he's got out in front now. Hanko has got to make himself useful for Mark Schluter if possible, and they know this. Reuben Machete knows it. He goes on the defensive down towards turn 3. Close, but Hanko's not going to be able to get himself past down into that corner, and that was a crucial rejoin for the race leader.
Indeed, and beautifully called. Now, the other thing that's happening that's slightly interesting, Sander Callis, who's in second place, I think he's gone hard. So when he stops, he might put on something quite quick and have a bit of fun. But yeah, fantastic drive from Machete, fantastic pit stop, and I think it was as Ed suggested. I think Ed suggested that he's just covering off what Schluter's done.
Yeah, it seems like the safe thing to do as well at this stage in the race. You're not particularly worried actually about Fournier and Callis because Mercedes actually nearly made his stop and come out in front of them in the end.
Yeah, exactly. So it kept him just outside the pit window. Of course, Callis and Fournier, they're not going to be able to make it to the end. Fournier could in theory, but the hards are not going to hold up that distance, and Callis has only used the hards in this race. So he has definitely got to change compound. And now Patrick Hanko, having not come out ahead of Reuben Machete, knows the best thing for his race is to put some fresh tyres on and try and get to the end with a bit more usable rubber underneath him as he launches the pit lane exit and re-emerges. Is he going to be ahead of Zooks? Just about, but Zooks might get the better run around the outside. It's such a tricky re-entry from the pit lane here when you come against cars on the racing line. It has gone wrong for FSR precedents in the past, as we see now. Great run around the outside. They barge wheels, and Zooks is side by side here with Patrick Hanko. He's got the inside into turn 4, but Hanko with the fresher tyres goes right around the outside and holds on to P7 there by the skin of his teeth, very much so. So lucky escape for Go Team there, because Zooks was absolutely going for that one.
It was a bit of a lucky escape. Yeah, they get away with it, and Hanko will get 7th for the moment, but where are they going to be by the end of the day? Still 16 laps to go, and Zooks is not that far away here. And now he looks to the outside at turn 11. Oh, he's in the grass. Oh, he might have been squeezed there as well. He goes straight across the corner there at turn 11 and 12. Goodness me, that is such a high-speed part of the circuit to make contact. Zooks trying to squeeze himself down an impossible gap there, and he just goes into the grass. Meantime, Fournier gets into the pit lane. Braxuk follows him. Nice coordination between the teammates as they make their final pit stop of the day.
Yeah, I think Zooks was going for a very, very narrow gap on the outside that was never realistically going to work out for him there. But fortune favours the bold, but not really on this occasion there. And I think first time he got sort of lucky to survive the collision there, and then second time less lucky, he had to cut across the grass. And that's the sort of thing where if you do that rejoin the track too quickly, you can very easily get a penalty there. So I think Zooks very lucky to still be in the race, as Ruben Machete, unsurprisingly, sets the fastest lap of the race and 2/10 quicker than Mark Schluter, crucially. So Schluter has only gained a couple of seconds. 4.4 seconds is the gap between the pair of them, as Sander Callis is now our new race leader, but he has to come in again. You've got to think, as David very strongly alluded to, Callis is considering a late switch to softs here to try and get into the top 4 or 5 by the end of this.
Just wonder, David, whether you think that the pit stop of Marston in the last couple of moments is a bit of a preview to that. Maybe that's a driver coming in from maybe further down, but late on putting those soft tyres on as Mercedes actually gets past Callis. Now the pit stop is coming. I wonder whether this will be a soft tyre stop for him.
It doesn't look like it. The graphic makes it look like he's put hards on, but I thought he started
mediums.
on hards.
I think
they're mediums? Okay.
Yeah, yellow, you can see on the side there. So yeah, Sander Callis is definitely going to be able to get to the end, and he's going to have the fastest tyre. So he's come out P5 ahead of Braxok, and he's got now Fournier on a very similar strategy, and he picked just a lap ago, who's extended that gap from 1 second to 2. So yeah, it's really Jeffrey Fournier that Callis is concerned about here. And now we've got Tom Oldenmenger, who's on the 1 stop currently, gotten up to P3, but he's got Fournier all over him like a cheap suit right now. Surely he's not going to be able to hold that for long.
14 laps to go. Is Oldenmenger going to try and keep it all the way to the end? I'd be impressed if he does, but I can't see it personally. Here comes Fournier, looking for a podium place, and it's going to be outside line before turn 11. He's not going to hand this one, is Oldenmenger, but he's not going to fight it too much either, because he can't. The newer tyres there of Fournier and the softer tyres, he goes through into 3rd place. Pretty important for Fournier's race. If he got stuck there for a while, then Callis certainly would have been able to catch him a lot quicker, but that is now alleviated with that pass.
Yeah, neat and tidy.
My graphic is still showing me white sidewalls on Sander Callis's car, and the live timing, which shows the compound, is showing that Sander Callis has got hards as well. So maybe there's a glitch on my end, because if that was the case, he's had 3 sets of hards, and you've got to use 2 compounds.
David, I'm seeing bright yellow tyres on the side of that group when he's coming through turn 1.
Cool, I've got a glitch then. Okay, I'll stop talking about that.
No worry.
I'm going to trust my eyes at the moment, and it does show the medium, and it would be suicidal, you'd suggest as well, for Callis to do that, going for a 3rd set of hard tyres would be ludicrous. So he's certainly not done that. He's got to get past Oldenmenger though, in the same way that Fournier had to quickly. He's got to do the same. Braxok, Hanko and Zooks are not that far apart, and they haven't been for most of this race. They will fight towards the finish here as well, you would have thought. Are they going to actually change any positions though? Because we've seen so often here tonight that it's been about track position, and even if you've got old tyres like Oldenmenger here, you can hold that track position without too much trouble.
Yeah, especially, well, not if Sanderkars hits the back of him, which he just narrowly avoided by getting on the brakes in time into 13 there. But yeah, the problem now for Oldenburger is if he pits now, he comes out, I think, behind Prosciutto. Well, definitely behind Zux anyway, because there's this big train of cars. Whereas if he stays out and tries to hold track position, he might still finish 6th or 7th, but he's definitely going to lose that P5 into turn 1. And Callas, very aware that he uses the DRS up the inside. And yeah, that was a good effort from Oldenburger, but he knows he is fighting a losing battle. You can just see in the background Janos Braxok absolutely coming for Oldenburger here. So Oldenburger, he did get that podium in the opening round of the season. And he's, as we say, recovered into the top 5 in Sepang. Then Melbourne, it seems, has given him a bit of a strategy dilemma, and he is having to conserve very, very worn hard tyres here compared to the fresh mediums that the others have got at their disposal. We are seeing some of the softs being deployed a bit further down. I think Bill, Massa and Tucson are all gambling on them at this late phase of the race then, with just 12 laps left to go.
They are hoping to get a bit of speed out of those Red Bull tyres towards the end, but none of the front runners really doing it, unless Oldenburger is going to make a second pit stop here this afternoon and put those red stripe tyres on. We will wait and see. 12 laps to go as Ruben Micheli makes his way over the start-finish line again. He's got 5.5 seconds over Mark Schluter, so I'm not sure, David, whether he's just toning this back to control this race right to the end, or whether he's legitimately being caught right now, but he is certainly losing some of that 7-second lead that he started this final stint with.
Yeah, it's been hovering around 5 seconds for a couple of laps, and I did look at the lap times, and it looks like Meshadi's got him covered. They're both in the 18s, but Ruben's doing like an 18.2 and an 18.5, and Schluter doing an 18.3 and 18.3. So yeah, very similar lap times, hovering around the 6 seconds. He's doing what he needs to do, isn't he?
Yes, for the moment. And you can't ask for anything more than that, really, from Ruben Micheli, as he looks to try and take his first ever Formula Sim Racing World Championship victory. Now back into the group with Oldenburger again, which has been providing the entertainment through the last quarter of this race, it's got to be said. And Hanko and Zux are the next ones to try and come past. Jonas Braxok didn't find it very difficult. So you'd imagine Patrick Hanko is going to have it somewhat similar here as he now gets into the slipstream down towards turn 13. I'm not sure we've seen very many passes here yet, and it won't be there either this time round, Ed. The straight not quite long enough. Hanko will have to spend a couple of corners stuck now behind the very weary old hard tyre running car in front.
Yeah, I remember in the pro race here last year there was I think Oldenburger, Cameron Roger, and I forget who else, there was another car involved as well. They all sort of came together in turn 13, and Tom was able to sort of profit as a result of that. So I think Tom is very aware it can be an overtaking opportunity, but only if there's something very catastrophic happens. And with very, very worn tyres, Tom needs to be extremely careful with his exits here, the low traction he's got available. The good news now for this time is that Hanko has got Zux, has been second fastest laps of the race and catching both of them, so Hanko can't just focus on Oldenburger in front of him. He's got to pass him quickly and cleanly without giving an opportunity to Zux right behind him. So Hanko's in a bit of a tricky map in the middle position, whereas Oldenburger, well, he's just got to defend for as long as possible.
Yeah, looking forward and backwards at the same time. Always the awkward place to be in. Zux looking to steal a mark here on the outside into turn 11. He's been here, but makes space for himself. Side by side between the two, and they're going to make contact. They're off the circuit down at turn 12. There's going to be damage here for these two. Oh my word. He's lost his front left tyre, his Hanko, and I think Zux is out of the Grand Prix as well. Oh my word. It was always going to happen. These two were not happy with each other after the first ordeal. And Zux is missing a rear tyre, maybe both. He is out of this Grand Prix. So is Hanko. That is a real shame for the both of them. We saw it, Ed, a few laps ago into turn 11. Hanko didn't give quite enough room to Zux, who went firing across the circuit, and they've really held that grudge, I think, and they've taken each other out at turn 12.
Yeah, definitely not putting each other on each other's Christmas cards list at the end of the year, are they, with that? But yeah, you do sense that was, again, Zux just trying to make something happen, being a bit impatient there. He got a great run, but on the outside, you really have to be much further along the outside as Patrick Hanko just about slows it down in time for the pit lane speed limiter line. So this is him knowing there's still a chance of getting points out of this one if he finishes. But this Matt Toussaint will be very excited watching this, and of course Tom Oldenmenga, as he's missed actually the pit box because he's only got 3 wheels to brake with here. So this is not going to be a particularly quick stop for Hanko then as Machete comes through to lap him. But yeah, this it means Oldenmenga now has got an 18-second gap to Prosciutto, with the 2 people about to overtake him and taking each other out. So Tom will feel now very justified in his decision not to pit, because that just happened behind him because he stayed out.
It's just another little bit of that Oldenmenga magic that occurs in the final laps that have propelled him into 6th place.
Yeah, it is it's going to be his worst result of the season if it stays this way, but still 6th place is a great gain on where he qualified. What did you make of the incident, David?
Well, they hooked. I was on board when I went on board on the replay, and they hooked tyres on the entry to the 11-12 complex, and neither one prepared to give the other one any space, and then tried to both of them take the right-hand turn with their tyres hooked. And that's just absolutely never, 100 times out of 100, that's not going to work. So I think it was just both of them a bit aggressive. I think the Zooks was on the outside, so I think if someone's got to take more than 50% of the blame, it's going to be Zooks really. So yeah, unfortunate.
Super unfortunate. Just a shame, sorry, to see it end that way. Actually, that battle between the two, but it was clear that those two were really starting to go at each other after that initial incident down at turn 11. And as you say, Tom Oldenmenga has 6th place as a result there. That's what you can get from just persevering. I think he's the only driver to try the 1-stop here this afternoon. It seems to have worked. Bill, meanwhile, is on the soft compound tyres. He's another one of the Go Team Racing drivers, just in behind Mirko Mancini, who's got both Vega Valley eSports drivers into the top 10, because Mancini is in 10th. But how long is this going to stay like this for? 7 laps to go when they get to the line. In fact, these guys have got 8 to go when they get to the line, because they're only just in front of the leader, Ruben Machete. But it's going to be a question of whether these soft tyres can get through, Ed, and whether they're going to hold on as well to the finish.
Yeah, it is quite the gamble. It's so easy to put on the soft a lap or two too early, and then suddenly you find yourself all at sea in the final couple of laps as the rears and sometimes even the fronts just spinning out of control and just dropping bits off them like a bit of chewing gum that's past its sell-by date, essentially. But yeah, while they're working well, Bill has got to strike, and we saw Mancini having a few battles earlier on, and now it's Bill's turn to try and keep the pressure on here, and it was certainly worth taking this gamble here. Whether it's going to be enough to get Cedric Bill into the top 10 for the first time is the big question here, and Mirko Mancini desperately needs these points. Remember, there's also the Rookie Cup, the rookie points that these two are both competing for. Ruben Machete, of course, is our highest priced rookie because he's in the lead at the moment, but behind that you have to go back to Prosciutto's done a full season. I think it's Pascal, Singel, Mancini and Bill that are sort of the next drivers. So yeah, it's essentially, this is the battle for 4th place of the rookies.
It's a big field of rookies this season, isn't it? With a big changing of the guard in 2025.
New broom, that's fair to say, yes.
Yeah. And you know, it's got some great stories of new winners this season. Only one so far, but it looks like we're about to get a second. And it's one of the great things about the season this time round, the year this time round, is that there's going to be some new stories in terms of race winners and indeed championship contenders as well. Some of whom we're still trying to work out just who exactly they're going to be this season. I mean, coming into today, you could say Zooks is one of the real championship contenders, but it's not going to score any today. But Suter carries on the way he is. He's going to have 40 points over Zooks with just 7 rounds left. It's very difficult, Ed, at these early stages of the season to look around and see championship contenders, because as I was talking about earlier, the top 2 in the championship finished 7th and 8th in round 1 last year. But we're starting to see some emerge. I don't think we're seeing many other than Mark Schluter emerge at the front of the field as real contenders this year so far.
Indeed, even Oldenmenga, I think, was still sort of in the top 3 going into this race, just because of his sheer consistency alone, and a fair return of speed as well. Qualifying, not a huge strength for Oldenmenga, but a clever race strategy often keeps him in the mix at least. There's Patrick Hanko. He did get going again after that lengthy pit stop for a new wheel. So he is 3 laps down and a lap down on Boratovsky. But of course, this puts Lucas Viscott into the final points paying position, of course, for MV Conquest. And it gives Matt Tucson a couple of precious points as well for Grand Effects. So the loss for Zux and Hanko has definitely been their gain from their point of view, because otherwise they were not going to walk away very much in this race. You see Bill, you can tell Bill is, of course, was very, very strong in last year's Academy Championship. He's not quite as strong on the brakes, not looking quite as confident as Mancini, and he's starting to run out of laps here as well. They are just about on the lead lap. You can't quite see Ruben Machete in the background going through the lap room, so they should be okay in terms of they won't run out of laps as quickly as you might think, being as far down as they are in terms of time. But yeah, it will be interesting then as we see Patrick Hanko unsurprisingly set the fastest lap of the race, 1:17.6, because he's got to pump in a few of those if he wants to take a 16th away from Boratovsky. And great to see Andrei Boratovsky even in the field, because it was such a late call-up as well in this race. I literally just got a message in the morning from, while I was on a scout camp of all places, from the team owner, Mihailo Vincent-Dievitz, saying, oh, can Boratovsky drive our car in case, because Yassei's not around? And I was like, yeah, sure. Which car should I pick? And he's like, leave me alone. I'm kind of busy at the moment on camp. But anyway, there is Ruben. He set another personal best the last lap, 1:17.9, so only about 3/10 slower than Hanko on fresh soft tyres. And that really says it all about the job that Ruben's done today. And he was so unlucky in Bahrain, and that heartbreaking mistake near the end of Sepang saw him lose the victory there to Schluter. So to get this win here, this is so important, not just for his own confidence as a driver, but for his championship. And yeah, also great because Ruben was helping us race direct the pro race earlier on to help our younger talents coming through. So yeah, Ruben will be a very, very popular winner amongst them as well, either way.
Cedric Bill getting relatively close to Mancini, not all over him, but creeping fairly close, but does look like he's battling a bit with the softs going off. But enough to give Mirko Mancini quite a bit of pressure there in Sector 1.
It's been my fear really with the soft tyres, just about them going off too quickly here. You know, it's, I don't say they're only a qualifying tyre, because we've seen it quite well used actually further down the field in these properly thought out strategies, not just amongst those who have had trouble so far today, like Hanko, who has got his rear or front right corner rebuilt, and he's running again 3 laps down. But yeah, amongst some of those who are knocking on the door of a top 10, it's been proper strategy here from Bill, and at the moment he's just not quite able to get past Mancini. More problems with getting past on this circuit as starting to rear its head, even for those on the soft tyres, and he's got 4 laps to go for these guys. Ruben Machete's got 3, but it'll be 4 for these guys, because as I say, they'll be staying on the lead lap. Not with that line, Bill's not going to be getting the run that he needs to get past though.
Yeah, I'm also just keeping a little eye on the battle between Sander Callas and Jeffrey Fournier. Callas a 10th quicker than Fournier the previous lap, still not giving up on trying to steal that podium. And as I say, Sander Callas still yet to get a podium this season, but you can never count him out. He is just absolutely relentless, and it has been a while since the last podium that Callas took for. It's been a while since the last Grand Effect podium, to be honest. And I think it was indeed taken by Callas a couple of seasons ago. I think it on track at least, it was Silverstone. As there we see, is that Ruben just absolutely spinning the rear tyres as he laps one of the Go teams there. So that must be Patrick Hanko of all people, of course. So yeah, Ruben is just absolutely still pushing it. He's still taking the threat from Mark Schluter behind very, very seriously indeed, even though Schluter, his lap times are just equalising with Ruben Machete. So Mark Schluter's put together a very, very solid race to get back up into second place, but Ruben has just gone and covered 8 ways from Sunday, and there's just nothing that you can do to really change the outcome of this one so far. As you see Bill now 2/10 slower than Mancini in the previous lap. The softs starting to drop away from him. He's not been on them the longest though. Nando Massa behind has, but he's got a 21-second gap to Salagiani. So Massa is just in a conservation mode and really struggling. That last lap for Massa, 1:22.0. So he has definitely just had a pretty catastrophic lap there, but all things considered.
Well, it happens time to time as we follow these two battling away for 10th place again. Doesn't look like it's going to come to anything once again as Ruben Machete starts 2 laps to go, and it's probably time to start talking about Machete here, David. It's been a pretty controlled drive from him so far this afternoon. and it looks like he's on his way to taking his first ever victory in the Formula Sim Racing World Championship. As Ed mentioned, the heartbreak of Bahrain, missing out on Sepang victory as well, although he did get his podium. Looks like he's going to get his race win, and to be honest, looking back in hindsight, even from the early laps, he's looked comfortable in the lead here this afternoon.
Yes, for one reason or another, he's absolutely dialed in here at Melbourne's Albert Park. And you might remember at the top of the broadcast, I said if I was a betting man, I might put a fiver on him, because he just had an air of confidence about him. And we were preparing to get the pro broadcast underway, and we were running sort of 10 minutes early, 15 minutes early. And he said, oh, I might just go and do a quick practice qualifying lap. So he opened rFactor 2, did one qualifying lap and did a 14.7. On his first flying lap, and that's when I figured, you know, he really has his eye he's really dialed in and sorted out for this round, and he's driven beautifully, and Mark Schluter's driven very, very well, as he has in previous rounds, but Reuven has just had the edge, and certainly from half race distance had him covered. So it's been a very, very professional drive.
14.7, that would still have been good enough for pole as well, I think.
Yeah,
I don't think anybody else got anywhere near.
Yeah, his pole time was a 14.8, I think, but he just did a random, did a single lap and produced a 14.7 just because he had 10 minutes to spare. So, yeah, he had an act together today.
Certainly, there's no doubt about his speed, both in qualifying and indeed in the race as well. It's been a very fast-paced race here at Albert Park, where strategy and track position has actually been perhaps most crucial that it ever has been in 2025 so far. It's an entertaining circuit as always, seen high drama and a couple of incidents here and there. Great strategy at the front of the field, but above all, what's won Reuven Mercedes this race is the pure speed that he's shown over the 300 kilometres. Through the final sector, he will now come at Albert Park. And this will be a special, special moment in the career of this German driver. Comes into the final corner now, and Reuven Mercedes is a Formula Sim Racing World Championship race winner for the first time. It comes in the Australian Grand Prix. Round 3 of 2025 goes to him, and he's absolutely delighted with that. Just 6 or 7 seconds in front of Mark Schluter, who continues to lead this championship, although his gap over Mercedes will dip. And you'd imagine, Ed, he'll start to look over his shoulder and become a little bit concerned about this German driver who has made his mark on this championship this afternoon.
Yeah, of course, he's leading Schluter in terms of pole positions, and this is really, he did about half 7 races or so last season, didn't he? And this is sort of his first full proper attempt at FSR, where it's getting a lot of his focus, and indeed that's working out very, very well for him indeed, as now we see Mancini trying to sustain against a final lap assault from Cedric Bill here. Can Bill do anything about Mancini? It's looking like he's running out of corners here to pull something, as we see Fournier has taken that final spot on the podium, followed by Callas and Braxock. So yeah, Oldenburger does hold on to that 6th position just behind them in the end. Through the final corner they go, and Mancini is going to round out the top 10. Another double top 10 finish for Vega Valley eSports, but of course it's Optiminol to take their first win of the season, and it's a 1-3 on the podium. Him and Fournier will be absolutely over the moon. Yeah, long time coming for Jeffrey Fournier as well to get on the World Championship podium, if I'm not mistaken.
Yeah, well, before this season it was, yeah, but he's managed it twice now, with runner-up at Bahrain to Schluter. But there's the shot that everyone from Optiminol will be hoping for at the start of this afternoon. They're running side by side here at Albert Park at the end of the race, celebrating a victory tonight in the Australian Grand Prix. A fantastic performance from Optiminol indeed to get that, and they will actually get the team's points lead now actually as well over CMT Go Team Racing, who have held it for the first 2 weeks, although Schluter will keep the driver's title in his grasp at the moment, albeit at this early stage of the season. This was one of the big incidents of the day, by the way. Dukes and Hanko running side by side and both out of the race as a result of that one. But we are now joined by Reuven Mercedes, who's popped himself into the broadcast booth. A good evening, Reuven, and congratulations on taking your first ever World Championship race victory here tonight at the Australian Grand Prix. Just tell us how you're feeling, having crossed the line and taken that win tonight.
Because in the last few races in GPV or L2, I struggled a lot with the consistency, and today was just brilliant. And I still can do it, which is giving me a really nice feeling. And yeah, super happy for the team as well with the FP3. I don't know if we are now in front of Go Team in the championship or still, but we got closer, and this is really nice.
I think you'll be just edging ahead now, but it's going to be really close anyway between the two teams. What does this mean for the rest of 2025 for both Optimal eSports with a double podium here, but also for you personally as well? Your gap to Mark Schluter will now dip below 30 points for the first time since the last round, of course, as you take a few points away from him. What does it mean for the rest of the season for you personally and for the team as well?
If it wouldn't be for my PC crash in Bahrain, it would be only 12 points now, but if, and yeah, we showed today that we have the pace and that I have the consistency, and we see in Austria, but I think we can definitely challenge the guys ahead in the championship.
Well, congratulations, Reuven, on taking the victory here tonight in Australia. It's been a while coming, but congratulations on getting the win. And thanks for coming to have a chat with us immediately after the race as well.
No problem. Enjoy the rest of the interviews. Bye-bye.
Thanks so much. That is Reuven Mercedes there, the race winner here tonight from Australia in the FSR World Championship for 2025. You see the results on your screen. Mercedes wins ahead of Schluter and Fournier, who are on the podium. Hopefully we'll be joined by those two in a moment for a quick chat. Sander Callas and Jonas Braxok round out the top five, with Tom Oldenwenger getting his worst result of the season so far, but it's still a good result, especially considering where he qualified. 6th place for him at the end. I think he might even be second in the championship after this, so we'll do the maths in a moment. Christian Pasquale is 7th ahead of Cosmo Pasuto, 2 Go Team drivers. Istvan Singal and Mikko Mancini rounded out the top 10. Further down, Cedric Bill couldn't quite get past. Nando Marso was the first driver 1 lap down, was on the softs towards the end and slowed down to let Mercedes through towards the finish. Zalgianis was also a lap down with Matt Tucson, who gets a couple of points, along with Vukas Viscott, who, despite his issue early in the race, got a point as well. Andrzej Boratovsky got no points, unfortunately. A couple of laps down from him as well for Patrick Hanko, 3 laps down after his crash with Zooks, who didn't get to the finish. Neither did either of the Squire Nation eSports drivers down at the back end of the field. Hopefully we do get those other podium drivers to join us in a couple of moments' time. But first of all, Ed, your thoughts here from that race at the Australian Grand Prix. I mean, thoroughly enjoyable once again. And a new look to this front of the championship, I would say. Reuven Mercedes moves up to second, not Oldenwenger, sorry. But it's Schluter's certainly in control at the moment, that's for sure. But that win there, that bit of momentum for Mercedes might well just change the face of 2025 for this championship now.
Yeah, and certainly getting that first win under his belt will sort of just help him gain in confidence. And we saw, he alluded to it as well, talking about some of the bad luck he's been having in Grand Prix Virtual, another rFactor 2 championship, a good friends of ours, of course. But he's been showing a lot of potential there as well in Super League and Super Lights as well. He didn't have a great Super Lights home race actually at the Nürburgring. But yeah, this is absolutely the tonic that he needed. And you can tell that he's just really, really loving FSRs. But it was really, really enthusiastic when he joined last season as well. And I was annoyed he didn't get to do more of the season, I think. And now that there's a big chance at the championship now, you would expect Optimal and Reuven to throw absolutely everything at this then, as you can see there. It's still very narrow second place over Oldenwenger, of course, but you get a sense there's going to be a titanic scrap for third, and then an equally big one, of course, between him and Schluter. Those are going to be your obvious candidates, unless Jonas Braxok can maybe put together a winning run later in the season. But yeah, Schluter and Mercedes have both been super, super impressive, and Mercedes is going to just continue to get better and better, and Mark Schluter is going to have to raise his game to respond to them.
He certainly is. Final thoughts from yourself, David, unless we get anyone from the else on the podium. But another great race as far as strategy goes. But I would say that in putting aside all the tyre compound decisions and all the decisions on when to pit, what lap to pit and all that kind of thing, it did seem that track position played maybe a heavier role this week than any of the other rounds so far in terms of the strategic way of thinking about things today.
Yes, I would agree. And I think the only time we saw high quality clean passes was when somebody come out with a tyre compound advantage and they were still pretty fresh, and then they were able to bounce the guy in front. But even if you had a quicker compound, if you were 8-10 laps into the stint, it just wasn't quite enough. But we did see some good overtaking on track when those circumstances occurred. And I'll tell you what I was pretty pleased about. I was pretty pleased it was a relatively clean first lap. We had some offs and we had some contact, but it was mainly late in the race when people got frustrated and tried too hard. So I was pleased with the discipline the drivers showed on lap 1. And up the front, very high standard. I think, we've had a lot of changes, new faces on the grid this year for Formula Sim Racing World Championship. But to win one of these events, you are a top driver, because we've got some very good drivers coming in 3rd, 4th, 5th, 6th. To get on the top step of the podium is in 2025. The 25th year of Formula Sim Racing is still an awesome achievement. So congrats to Reuven. Great drive for him, great drive for Mark. And as Ed said, I think they're going to push each other really hard for the rest of the season.
I think that's absolutely right, and we look forward to it as well for the rest of 2025. It's glad to say that Mark Suter has indeed got himself into the waiting room, so we can have a bit of a chat with him after the Australian Grand Prix as well. Welcome in, Mark. Good to have you with us, and congratulations on another podium place in 2025, although it's 2nd place this time around. Where would you assess where Reuven was able to win this race, and you were just a few seconds short in the end? Where was the key moment today, would you say?
It was the first stint pretty much where Jeffrey was dropping off quite a lot, and I couldn't pass him because they had lower wings. And pretty much there I lost the race versus Reuven, in my opinion, because I think I had better tires for the end of the first stint than I could have stuck with Reuven, or even overtook him if Jeffrey wasn't between us.
But in the end, it's 2nd place, and it's actually an extension of your championship lead, which is nearly 30 points now after just 3 rounds. But what does this do for the rest of the season now? This is obviously the first time you've not won a race, which is a good record to have in itself, I suppose, after 3 rounds. But what does this do for the rest of the season now? Do you sort of know a bit more clearly now who's going to be challenging you in 2025, I guess?
Well, yeah, of course. I think it's between us and Optimal for the team championship, and either between me and Reuven, or between me and Zolt for the drivers championship. If not another tops up the game and wins like 2 races in a row the next races. But I think it's mainly Reuven and I who's gonna fight for the win.
It can certainly change very quickly. And just quickly on the next round, we'll be back in 3 weeks for the Austrian Grand Prix, which is returning for the first time in a while into FSR. How are you viewing to go around there for round 4?
Yeah, we'll have to see. I actually like the track. I won Super League in GPWC last year at this track, so I think it's a good hunting ground for me.
We'll find out in a few weeks' time. Thanks very much for coming to have a chat with us after the race, Mark, and congratulations on your 3rd podium in 3 races to start 2025.
Thank you, and have a good evening.
Thank you very much. It's Mark Suter to round off our interviews, it looks like. Don't think we're going to get Jeffrey Fournier tonight, but he segues us nicely into that schedule, of course, which, as I say, has the Austrian Grand Prix next up on the 10th of August, before a bit of a summer break of 5 weeks, and then we rip through the final 6 races pretty much 2 weeks after the last each time around, with a couple of exceptions in there. It's going to be a very exciting end to the season, certainly. But that is just about it from us here tonight. This has been the 3rd round of the Formula Sim Racing World Championship in 2025, and we have a new winner in the Formula Sim Racing World Championships history as well. It is Reuven Mercedes, who bounces back from maybe a bit of disappointment in the first couple of rounds to take victory in the Australian Grand Prix, rather. He'll be hoping to do the same at the Austrian Grand Prix in just a few weeks' time as well. I've been Neil O'Leary alongside Ed Hunter and David O'Reilly in the commentary box, with Peter Schooneman doing the cameras behind the scenes as well. A big thanks to everyone who's been tuned in as well. We'll see you again in 3 weeks' time for the Pro and World Championship races in Austria. From all of us for now, though, it's goodbye.